Excellent. Welcome everybody to our fall web chat. This is, it's mid-September already, good Lord. But welcome to our web chat with MNABE. Today, just wanted to let you know that as you have ideas to share, or questions or comments to share in the webinar today, you can type any of your questions or comments or feedback in the webinar's chat function. We will have some Q&A times or times for more interaction. During those times as well, you can raise your hand and ask questions over the headset. We'll unmute you at that point. But currently everyone is muted. And then if you have any technical assistance needs or any technical issues that arise with the webinar functioning, just ask Kathy Linder for help throughout the process. We're glad to have Kathy Linder helping from Literacy Action Network, helping as our technical assistant today. We do have quite a bit of staff participating from the Minnesota Department of Education. Todd, do you want to kick us off?
Hi, Todd Wagner, State Director.
Julie Dinko, Transition Specialist.
And then Brad Haskamp, I'm our Secondary Credential and Policy Specialist.
Hi everyone, Astrid Leiden, ABE Professional Development Specialist.
Hi, Lori Rialt, Grant Specialist.
Hi, this is Jodi Versaw, Program Quality Specialist.
And also you'll see as attendees, I think Sherry, our administrative support person, is on. And I think Alice Smith might be joining us, our GED Records and Administrative Specialist. And like I said before, we also have Kathy Linder from Literacy Action Network. You might have heard a new name there. As you were introduced before, we have Jodi Versaw that's joined our state team.
Yeah, so this is Todd. And we, after really over a year of having a vacant position, we were fortunate enough to be able to finally fill that position at the end of the summer. And we were lucky enough to have Jodi Versaw joining us on our team here. I'm sure many of you know Jodi. Jodi's worked in the ABE system in Minnesota for many years in a variety of different capacities, both as a teacher and administrator, and so brings a wealth of experience to our team. And we're really excited to have her as a new member of our team and to finally be sort of fully staffed.
Exactly. Well, almost fully staffed.
Almost.
Jodi, why don't you tell us a little bit about your role with our team?
Yep, this is Jodi. Thanks, Todd. So I'm really happy and grateful to be here as part of this team. My work will involve working with the annual application process and the narrative process, but just in general supporting sort of the operations of the whole team.
Excellent. Well, welcome, Jodi. During our discussion today, we have 6 different topics that we're going to be walking through: transitions, grants, professional development, GED, WIOA, and then make sure we have time for your questions. So let's jump right in with transitions. Hey, Julie, do you want to tell us a little bit about the transitions update?
Sure. Basically, I want to mention 2 grant opportunities that are available to the adult basic education field. One of them is Pathways to Prosperity. And for those of you who remember the fast track grants, those have been rolled into this grant opportunity. The proposals look a little different. I believe there's 3 different category groupings that you can write a proposal for, and one of them is the traditional fast track model. So you may be interested in submitting a proposal, actually be interested, but I highly encourage everyone to submit a proposal for this grant funding. The deadline is September 30th, and if anyone needs assistance or help with that or have questions, they can always contact me. But I'd refer them to Deed, who is administering the grant, and many of you know Nola Spicer and John Vo, who are working with this grant opportunity. And the second one is Adult Basic Education Navigating and Advising Support Services. And I'll let Jodi talk a little bit about that. I'm sorry, I should have mentioned, you do have a link in your materials to the Pathways to Prosperity web page on the GED website that will give you the RFP for that one. And Jodi, go ahead with the navigating and advising grant.
So currently open opportunity to apply for relatively small amount of funding ranging from between $10,000 to $30,000 depending on your program size for navigating and advising support within your program. The RFP for this opportunity is attached here to the webinar in the materials section, as well as in addition to the RFP, another piece of that application that has to be submitted is the budget form, which is titled.
Is that form for
budget? For budget.
Yep.
Sorry. So they're grouped alphabetically, the materials in your materials section. And there is also in your materials section a link to a letter of intent. This is just a really brief online form just to help us get a sense of which programs out there are interested in this opportunity. So that one is titled Letter of Intent for Navigating and Advising Support Services Grant Opportunity.
And then there's one more legislative action that I'd like to mention, and hopefully we will be offering an informational webinar within the upcoming weeks, and it is in regards to reimbursement to adult basic education programs that work with certified nursing assistant training. And that's legislation that was passed. Again, I'm just giving people a heads up that there will probably be an informational webinar coming up within the next 2 weeks to give people more information about what this is about and how to participate if you offer that type of programming. If anything else? That's it, Tom.
Okay.
Fred. Yep.
Thanks, Julie.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Jodi.
Any questions about
Yeah,
either of those grants?
does anyone have any questions about any of those grant opportunities or the upcoming CNA technical assistance for that training reimbursement? Any questions, you can either chat them in the chat function, type them in the chat function, I should say, or you can raise your hand and we'll unmute you to share your question over the phone or over your computer mic. Russ is asking when the letter of intent is due, Julie. I'm assuming this is for the ABE Navigating and Advising Support Services grant, right? That is the one that requires the letter of intent?
Russ, we haven't put a due date on that because it's not a required element of that application. So you do not necessarily have to submit a letter of intent in order to be able to apply. But if you know that you're intending to apply, go ahead and do that whenever you have a chance. It's pretty quick, and it shouldn't take you more than a couple minutes.
So if you are going to submit it, just submit it with or before your application.
Sure, Brad. Not after.
It just helps give us an idea of how many reviewers we need.
So we got another question here from Susan Wentkamp-Brandt. She said that she heard that the Navigation Services grant requires that the service plan be sustainable. And she wasn't sure how we do that since navigation services don't generate many contact hours. Do you have any ideas, or could you elaborate on ideas there?
Certainly, yes, I can. It's not a required, it's highly recommended, and I believe the application is given priority if you can show how you sustain it. What we're looking for is innovative ideas around how to integrate navigating and advising services into what adult basic education already does, into our classrooms, into what we teach. You can hire an advisor or navigator. However, that probably isn't going to be a sustainable model. So that's what we mean by sustainable, or looking at different ways this can be embedded into what we already do. Does that answer your question, Susan, or does anyone else want to elaborate on that a little more?
This is Todd. I would maybe just add that, so perhaps one way to think about the grant in terms of sustainability is if you were able to use some of the grant money to build some capacity into your program that doesn't currently exist. That might be adopting or adapting a curriculum. It might be integrating the use of some sort of instructional technology like MCIS, the new adult version of MCIS, or other kinds of one-time expenditures that would have long-term payouts. MCIS is the Minnesota Career Information System, and the Minnesota Career Information System is Minnesota's part of a consortium of 20-some states that collaborate in providing this very rich sort of environment for career exploration, planning, developing employability skills. There's a lot of resources in there. And we have been fortunate enough to work with the Minnesota MCIS folks over the last 6 months or so to develop an adult ed version of the career information system. And certainly if you're interested in more information, please contact any one of us, and we can give you more information and also put you in touch with the folks here at the department who actually run the MCIS system.
And Russ is wondering, are there plans, as you've heard, to include navigation in the legislative platform going forward? If so, is the intent to provide evidence of the need?
Russ, that's a great question. Might be better answered by someone from LAN if there's anybody on who'd like to address that. I think certainly that's something that I have heard people talking about just generally around the various grants that were associated with this last legislative session. So I think we'd be looking for both good ideas about how to incorporate programming and for evidence that it's valuable.
And for those that aren't familiar with LAN, LAN is Literacy Action Network.
And Karen Walters is the chair of the legislative committee for LAN. She's on the webinar now, so you could chat directly with her.
Okay.
Great. Well, at this point then, we're going to turn it over to Lori Rialt to talk with us about grants and some fiscal dates coming up. Take it away, Lori.
Hi. Yesterday you should have received an email from me with a revised award letter. Your state aid stayed the same, but your federal, you'll notice, changed slightly. That was due to both a calculation error and a mail merge error. So, but again, your state aid stayed the same. We're hoping this week to have the federal allocation loaded into SERVs, and so watch for that. And when it is there, contact your agency head and ask them to accept the funds, and then once that's done, you can go ahead and create a budget and start to draw funds. Also attached to that email was the final fiscal completion report for 2016, and we did it a little differently this year. I customized it for each program so that your individual information hopefully is correct and in there. And so the only thing you need to fill out is the first two columns where you report your federal and state expenditures for 2016. And then, of course, that last column is if you plan to, I don't like to use the word carryover, but use any of your expenditures between July 1 and September 30th against your state fiscal year 16 revenue. So you would report that there and make sure your business manager is properly course coding them, because we do a year later check to make sure those expenses actually happened. And speaking of the course code, column F shows whether or not you claimed expenditures last year between July 1, 2015 and September 30th, 2015. And if you did, they should have been course coded 005. And mid-November, I will be getting a course code report. And if that amount doesn't show up, we then have to reduce your final state fiscal year 16 payment by that amount. And I don't think you probably want that to happen. So if you didn't get an email from me, let me know and I'll be sure to get that out to you. And then a couple of dates I wanted to remind you of. November 1st, we're going to lock down the SERVS budget and, so that you can't make revisions or do draws after November 1st for state fiscal year 16. So make sure that you've taken care of all that before then. November 15th is when the final fiscal completion report is due, and I would like to have that sent to me, both a signed hard copy and the electronic Excel spreadsheet. If you could email it to me, not a PDF, but the actual Excel spreadsheet, that would be fantastic. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Lori. Let's take another moment to pause and make sure you have that you get a chance to ask any questions about any of the grant or fiscal completion report information that's either been emailed or any other items that we're talking about today with these award letters or fiscal completion reports. So if you have a question, type it into the chat box, or you can also raise your hand and we can unmute you to ask your question verbally. While we're doing this as well, this is a good time to note in your materials that all the information, that this entire PowerPoint is saved as a PDF, and you can see it in the it's the last resource on the materials list, and it's called the web chat with MNABE parentheses September 14th, 2016. So you'll see it there as the last material. Okay. Well, at this point, we're going to move on to the next topic, and that's professional development opportunities. So I'm going to turn it over to Astrid.
Hi, everyone. We wanted to take this chance to let you know about some of the upcoming events and opportunities for the fall and some of the resources that have recently become available. One exciting development that we have is our CCRS implementation cohort, which is kicking off tomorrow with their initial webinar. We were really pleased with the applications that we got in for this PD opportunity. We've got about 60 people from 13 different programs all around the state participating in this cohort that is going to focus on teaching participants how to evaluate resources, curricula, and classroom instruction for alignment to the college and career readiness standards for adult education, and make improvements to those to make sure that they're more aligned with the key instructional shifts and the CCRS standards. This group will be working over the course of the year through a couple of face-to-face institutes, individual and program coaching, and a lot of implementation tasks back at their programs. This is going to be similar to some of the training that we delivered to the adult diploma pilot programs last year. We piloted some of the national training we received with that group last year. We've continued to make tweaks and changes based on feedback from those programs and participants, and our CCRS implementation cohort will be going through yet another revised version of that training. So we're really excited to start working with them, and we'll report back to the field on how that's going at our next web chat. Just a reminder that fall regionals are coming up, the North Regional in Walker on the 27th and 28th of October, and the South Regional in Mankato on November 4th. Registration for those will be available in the next few weeks on the Atlas website on the PD calendar. A couple of other events to make sure you have on your calendars. We have our annual ABE Support Services Conference coming up in November. It's the 17th and 18th of November, and a save the date should be going out within the next week for that conference. As always, the first day of that conference has an ABE Foundations training session for new or support staff that would like a review of the basics in the morning, and the afternoon is focused on certification training for our CASAS and TABE assessments. And then Friday is going to be focused in the morning on helping people get more familiar with the changes that have come to our accountability system with WIOA, so a really important session for folks to attend, and then followed by concurrent sessions on a variety of topics, disability use intake, cultural competency testing, distance learning, and the state ABE database. So that conference is open to everyone and is relevant for anyone who has support duties. So whether they are doing all support services or whether you're someone who wears multiple hats and are involved in any sort of intake, registration, testing, or data work, this conference is for you. So hope to see you there. Another conference coming up late fall, early winter is the Volunteer Management Conference hosted by the Minnesota Literacy Council. That's December 2nd here at the Department of Education. This is for teachers, managers, volunteer coordinators, anyone who has volunteers working in their program, and with a variety of sessions that offer strategies and resources for strengthening your work with volunteers. There's also a wonderful volunteer engagement award ceremony to recognize those involved in volunteer work here in Minnesota. And as an added perk for those of you traveling from a distance, anyone who travels more than 50 miles one way will have their lodging paid for by the Literacy Council. And then I'd like to tell you just about some other activities that are coming up. Atlas is expanding their repertoire of study circles focused on language and literacy. Some new offerings this year. You've got a flyer with more details in your materials section, but just want to highlight a couple of new things coming up. The low literacy adult ESL study circle that's been offered for the past number of years. They now have a part 2 for those of you who have already gone through that. That's coming up this fall. In addition, launching a language and numeracy study circle looking at the intersection of language instruction and math instruction. And then a pronunciation study circle looking at building oral language skills with adult ESL learners. So some really interesting new options. You can check out the flyer for more information or contact Atlas. Another PD opportunity to have on your radar is the career-focused contextualized instruction professional development. We've brought in consultants from LaGuardia Community College in New York over the past few years to help lead some training on contextualizing basic skills instruction to occupationally focused areas. And we're going to be offering that again this year. This year we're bringing it in-house, and the training will be coordinated and delivered by Minnesota practitioners through the Atlas grant. We're very excited about that, and applications are going to be available in early October, so stay tuned for more information. And if you've got questions in the meantime, you can contact me or Patsy Vinogradov at Atlas. And if you're looking for resources, a great way to get a nice overview of what's out there on the Atlas Resource Libraries is an upcoming virtual open house. So take a tour of their resource libraries. They've done a lot of work over the past year to expand the resources that are housed there, to curate those, and really put the best of the best up for you. So you can join that next week, September 20th. Register for that on the calendar of events. and get a tour of what's out there. That's open to everyone working in ABE. You'll also find on the Content Standards Resource Library something that I think a lot of people will be excited about. I have gotten questions about this quite a bit over the past few months. This CCRS implementation team has been working to develop and revise some lesson and unit planning templates for English Language Arts and Math based on what we worked with last year through Standards in Action and the Adult Diploma programs. There are now templates available on the resource library, so encourage you to check those out, share those with your instructors. They are tools that integrate all three sets of the Minnesota Content Standards, CCRS, ACES, TIF, and North Star Digital Literacy, as well as some guidance on integrating the shifts and other important features into your lesson planning. So those are a good guide or something that you could use as a template to create your own program-based lesson planning templates. Another really exciting resource out there related to CCRS is a new series of webcasts that are focused on the standards for mathematical practice. We're calling these CCRS Math Practices in Practice. And the idea is to give people some more practical ideas of how to facilitate the use of these practices in their classrooms. So there's a series of 8 webcasts that are housed on our Minnesota ABE YouTube channel, and you can link to those from the Atlas Numeracy page on the resource libraries. And each one of these webcasts gives an explanation of the practice, some key questions to ask students to facilitate the use of the practice, some different activities, and some classroom snippets that show the practice in action. There's also a viewing guide on the Atlas website with those practices that can be used in a staff meeting or local professional development activity to generate some reflection and exploration of those webcasts as a group. Does anyone have any questions about those different PD resources or opportunities or anything else in the realm of professional development that we can answer for you?
So if you have any professional development specific questions, this is a good time to ask those either via the chat function. You can type in your questions, or you can raise your hand and we can call on you and unmute you. Okay. Well, we'll have some time for Q&A at the end of the session too. So at this point, let's move on to our next topic, GED updates. So a couple things I wanted to cover today for GED updates. First, I wanted to tell you about some changes with requesting accommodations. Second, I wanted to talk to you about some GED Ready information, both promotions and vouchers that are coming up here. And I also wanted to remind you about the free testing promo code and just some additional, just kind of remind you about that information. And then kind of give you an update on requesting additional GED news. So first off, let's talk about accommodations. If you look in the materials section under GED Accommodations Manual, it's under there, like I said, it's labeled as GED Accommodations Manual. It's a PDF. There you'll see the new process for how you can request or how your testers can request accommodations. It used to be this whole process of faxing information in. You're not quite sure if they received it. There was this kind of fairly low-tech way of doing it. Now they've actually updated to this online version that connects to the individual's GED.com account. And so this online process hopefully can be a lot easier, a lot simpler to understand where the student is in the process. So if you are working with the GED prep student, you can actually help them submit that through their GED.com account and their accommodations request, and you'll actually see the status of it through their GED.com account. So that will be really exciting. And this manual is really helpful. It includes a lot of slides, screenshots, and clear instructions about how you can go through that process. So I encourage you to download that and take a look at that. Minnesota has a very, very low number. We're below the national average in terms of requesting GED accommodations. Overall, they deny less than 5% of GED accommodations requests nationally or internationally. So Minnesota has one of the lowest request levels for GED accommodations. So Debbie Bergholt from GED Testing Service wants to work with us to see how we can increase appropriate GED accommodations requests. So if you have questions about that, you can always email me, or we can connect with Debbie Bergholt at GED Testing Service. For any student or program that wants to continue using that fax and request system, you can still use that system, and they're not planning on shutting that down in the near future. So you can still use the fax system, but I would encourage you to use the online system because it does directly connect to their GED.com account. So one of the things I wanted to mention in terms of GED Ready is that GED Testing Service is ramping up for their GED Ready Promotion. It launches in less than 2 weeks on Monday, September 26th, and lasts until October 31st. During that time, the GED Ready tests are 50% off. So if a tester or if a program requests vouchers, they can get those at $3 a piece. And the key note there, though, is that you have to purchase and take the test between September 26th and October 31st. If you purchase a voucher, or if a student purchases a GED Ready test at the $3 level and does not use it by October 31st, that money will be reimbursed by GEDTS, so they'll give you that $3 back. To request this, starting September 26th, use the code GEDGO when making the purchase. For more information, including flyers and promo materials that you can share with your local media, with your students, etc., go to the gedtestingservice.com/educators/promos, and they'll be able to tell you all about that and give you more clarifying information there. And also, I just want to really stress, make sure your students know about that, but make sure that they know they can't use it before September 26th, because we don't want folks getting frustrated that that's not available, because it won't be accessible until September 26th. The other exciting news is that we do have GED Ready vouchers that we're ready to distribute. So we have now, next week, you'll get an email sent. This will be sent to the ABE manager, coordinator, and lead teacher list. And it will be a survey request saying if you want to request GED Ready vouchers, click on the survey and fill out the survey. And what it will ask is for your name, your program name, and consortium name if that's different, and some contact information. And it will ask you how many GED Ready vouchers are you requesting, and how many GED prep students did you serve last year, a rough estimate, and just a rationale for your request. And that way we can try to divvy those out. The survey will be open for at least 2 complete weeks, and then vouchers will be sent after October 4th when the survey closes. We want to make sure we get all of the requests collected and make sure we have enough vouchers before we start divvying them out. So if you have been asking about requests via email, none of those requests will actually be able to be counted. We need you to actually complete the survey so we can total all those up together. And so if you've been emailing about it, this will be your chance next week to complete that simple survey with 8 questions to request the GED Ready vouchers. So the other key question to note is how long will the GED test be free? We still don't know, understandably so, but we do know that we've had fairly somewhat lower levels of testing. We've had definitely more than 1,000 tests administered per month, but still it's still lower than what we had in, say, May and June of earlier this year. And again, to use that free GED, it's the first free test in each subject using the code MNGED30 at either a Minnesota testing center or at a North Dakota or South Dakota testing center that has been opened up for you upon your request. So again, it's important to know that the state legislature allocated $245,000 for free GED testing. They did specify that it has to be free testing. So so that was about double what they allocated for the $10 off last time. But it's not the full free, and at this current rate, we're still seeing that this the free test will likely end sometime in late fall of 2016 here. So I know we had some questions about GED Ready requests and between the voucher and the promo. I think it was Astrid, if you could help me out here. I think Christina asked if how do we help students whether they should do the 50% free, the 50% or the free voucher. And I would really encourage you. I'm really glad you brought this up, Christina. I would encourage students that can pay for it or programs that can pay for it to utilize the $3 ones. Initially, if you have a limited number of vouchers, and also acknowledging that you're not going to have the free vouchers until after October 4th. So I'd encourage you to try to use those free ones only when or as absolutely necessary, because it is a limited amount. But obviously, when students need them, we want you to be using them.
Does that answer your question, Christina, or were you looking more for guidance about which subject area to start with?
Oh, I think in terms of which GED test you might want to start a student with for a GED Ready, I think that would depend on their TABE testing. Where are they doing in TABE testing versus reading versus math? I mean, that would kind of give you an idea of which subject area might be better. Oftentimes, we have local programs that might start with either the reading or the social studies if they're testing lower in math. And maybe if they're testing higher in math, it might be math or science that they might start those students on in terms of a GED Ready first. But definitely based on their TABE results, and I would use a TABE in both areas to kind of help you decide. I would also use your judgment based on their studying. What have they been studying? What have they been studying in your program? And which of those 4 subjects do you think that they might be ready for in terms of the GED Ready?
And I would encourage you to talk to some of the other local managers about how they approach that in their programs, because I know different programs have different approaches based on student needs and how their program offerings work. Any other questions for Brad about GED vouchers? Christine was looking for clerk. She's in a consortium. Do I get GED vouchers from consortium?
So the Survey Monkey is the survey request is going to go out to the managers, coordinators, and lead teachers. So we're specifically allowing any program, not just not just the 43 consortia leads, but we're asking for every program within a consortium that they can make their own request. Now, I wouldn't want to see multiple requests from the same program or from the same site, but you could ask for. Each program can make a request for GED Ready vouchers. You don't have to coordinate them all through your consortium.
Good question.
Yeah, great question.
Anybody else?
So as you have as you have questions about GED, you can always let me know. But one piece of news one issue I want to remind you of is if you are not currently receiving GED In Session, it's a Wednesday email. It goes out every Wednesday. Please sign up at gedtestingservice.com for In Session because that gives you a lot of information. In fact, the one that went out. No, I'm sorry, it's every Tuesday. The one that went out yesterday really promoted the GED Ready. It gave links and ideas about the GED Ready promotion. So I strongly encourage you to subscribe to the GED In Session. Okay, well, we're going from GED then to WIOA. And, we're just full of acronyms today in our ABE system. So WIOA, we have some updates there that Todd, Jodi, and I will share with you. First off, the things that we want to make sure you're aware of today, we want to talk about state plans, regional and local plans, regulations, federally competitive applications, or what we've been calling the recompete, and additional resources and training. Now, if we were going to go in depth on all of these, that would be a couple of days worth of content. We're not going to expect you to be on the web chat for that long. Instead, we'll give you a brief overview of some of those key areas. First off, with our state plan, it's important to know that the feds gave us, I think it was called provisional approval for our state plan. Basically, that meant we had to revise our state plan. And that was all titles. ABE is Title II, but all the other titles through the workforce centers and voc rehab, they had to revise theirs as well. We got all of our revisions made and submitted by September 1st. In terms of ABE, much of the detail that was asked for regarded making sure that there was detail added, especially about the competition of the federal ABE funds. They really wanted to hear more about that. They wanted to ensure that there's going to be a competition for the federal ABE funds. So they seem to be very, very intent on that. So that was most of the clarification that we provided on our end. But as it's not yet posted, but DEED will eventually be posting this, or should soon be posting our revised state plan. Probably once it's actually approved, they'll be posting that on the DEED website. And once that link is available, we'll be emailing that out to folks and sharing that with folks. Now, locally and regionally, Todd, do you want to talk a little bit about this local and regional plans?
Sure. So many of you may know that both for the regional level plans and for the local WSA plans, in both cases, DEED ultimately decided not to approve those plans, and those are the plans that cover all of the main program titles under WIOA. And our understanding was that for both the local and regional plans, that folks were given 90 days to submit a new plan. It turns out maybe it was 90 days for the local plans and a little bit longer timeline for the regional plans. But anyway, regardless, there should be a process going on currently, both at the region level and within each local work service area, to develop a plan, a WIOA plan to submit that includes, in theory, includes all the titles and for submission back to DEED for consideration. So wanted to make sure you were aware of that, and actually we'd like to take a minute right now to sort of get a sense of our folks being asked to participate in the redevelopment of those plans. So I'm wondering if there's anybody out there who is participating, who's been included in that process. If you wouldn't mind raising your hand, and we can unmute you and just give us a quick update on what process is being followed in your area.
Karen Walters chatted in. Now she has a workforce council meeting today, so she's thinking she'll hear more about that today.
Thanks, Karen. Anybody else who has had any contact about being involved in the redevelopment of those plans? Wow,
people sure are quiet today. So Karen is asking, has anyone heard that they weren't approved? Because she actually had not heard that it was approved yet.
It was not approved.
That it was not approved. Yeah, so none of the local or regional plans were approved. And so Teresa Zingery said that maybe those ABE reps on the local workforce development boards, maybe they knew about it, but maybe not the others have. So if you are a local rep on the if you are an ABE rep on the local workforce development board, it'd be helpful to share that information with your other the other folks in your area.
Caroline says that they haven't officially even informed them that it wasn't approved, and she heard it from somebody else.
Yeah, interesting. So thanks for go ahead, please keep sending those in. It's very interesting to see. It sounds like there's a lot of different messaging that's happening. Some places have been formally informed. Teresa Zingery is indicating that Luke Weisberg came to their board meeting to explain, provide an overview, I guess, of why it wasn't approved and what would be done to revise it.
Looks like Beth Peterson, it looks like that was the annual MWCA meeting was a little heated, she said, because they had found out there that that not everyone was, or that everyone was denied. And they weren't happy that everyone was denied, and so there were a lot of comments and conversation with Jeremy Hansen-Willis over at DEED.
Looks like a number of people, this is the first they've heard of this. So you either have not heard or have not been asked to participate in the revision.
So our understanding is the regional plans aren't due until January, but we also understand that the local plans are actually due to Julie.
Mid-October.
Mid-October. Yep. Those local plans are due mid-October, and like Beth is saying, she's also saying not only have they heard that they've not been approved, but they obviously then they've not been asked to help with the rewrite. And that's something that local ABE administrators should be reaching out to those local workforce development boards, especially for the ABE rep, what needs to be done for the rewrite, because you should be involved in, the ABE rep should be involved in that process.
It's so interesting. Yeah, Teresa's saying weren't asked to be involved. Luke just explained that more detail was needed. Which is interesting because presumably some of the detail that might be needed would be information about how ABE programming will address the needs in the local area and in the region. So I guess what we could say is that so you might still then want to reach out to your local workforce development board and just to sort of check in and see where things are at and find out, if there's a way that you can provide input to that process. I would have assumed that that would have been the intent of any communication that went out from DEED regarding those plans. The redrafting of the plans would also include input from Title II, and not just input, but the idea, part of what those plans are supposed to be outlining is how the various WIOA programs, the various the programs funded under the various titles will operate together to address the needs of that local workforce development area and the region. And presumably some involvement on the part of the ABE community would be necessary in order to meet that requirement. So anyway, thank you for the feedback, and encourage you to, again, to reach out to the workforce folks, and please let us know if you have any further questions or concerns. Thanks.
Pat Thomas was noting that their WSA knows about this, that their plan was denied, and they actually had a plan to meet with the GWDC to get more direction, but then the meeting was canceled. And I believe Pat has her hand up, and every time I try to click on it, or every time I try to click on attendees, the hand goes down. So I think there's something weird with my computer here. Astrid, is it Pat's hand that's up?
Yes.
Okay, can you unmute her so that we can give her a chance?
Go ahead, Pat. Did you want to add something?
No, what I believe is happening, because I have talked to our workforce director, and they were looking for more direction, as you stated,
that I had put in there on the chat thing, but that had gotten canceled. So I think before they plan on redrafting, they want more direction as to what they will accept. I know at Summer Institute, Jeremy Willis was talking about how part of the reason probably none of them were accepted is there was not probably as good a direction as should have been given from DEED as to what they expected.
Thanks, Beth.
And like Teresa was reiterating or pointing out that, yeah, like you said, Todd, more making sure that ABE involvement is included with that redrafting and the revision of the local and regional plans is essential, is very important in this process. So actually, Teresa seemed to get some additional information from Luke Weisberg on that some of the areas that they need more specificity was on partners and pathways. They wanted the plans to actually name names, and they wanted more on the regional leadership structure. What would be the composition of that regional leadership? And that being in the metro, that is an interesting one because there's a lot of discussion about that metro region in particular. And it also is, she was saying that they were asking for more clear and specific alignment goals with regards to proposed programs, especially ABE. So if ABE is being pointed out as one of those areas that needs more clarification, then yes, absolutely ABE needs to be at that table to help rewrite that plan. Okay. Excellent. Well, we'll have some time to continue this discussion in our Q&A time. But at this point, let's kind of talk about some of the other pieces of WIOA. And I just want to remind folks that in August, on August 19th to be specific, you can see here on the picture that the federal regs were published for all the areas. And these are the WIOA specific regulations for Title II, for adult basic education. We have not attached the giant documents in the materials here. We figured you had enough bedtime reading so that we will instead let you know that this is the first time that ABE will have any type of federal regulation since the 1990s. So this is going to be kind of a new era for adult basic education in terms of how the feds, the state, and the local programs work together. Todd, Julie, and I were able to attend what they called Federal Regulations Boot Camp. I know you're all just so jealous right now that we got to attend this 3.5-day Federal Regulations Boot Camp. Imagine going to swampy DC at the end of August and being quarantined in a hotel room for the 3.5-day period. That is what this process was. But we did come away with some great information. It was very helpful in terms of deconstructing the regulations. So what we're currently doing is we're starting the process of training the rest of our state staff on what the regulations are and what they include, and having some discussions about that so that we can plan a training for local ABE programs. But let me just give you a brief overview first. So with Title II, some of the specific regulations that we'll be diving into later this year are, one, allowable ABE activities. There's some clarification and new definitions of our allowable ABE activities. Second, there's some clarification on IEL civics. And third, they have some regulations specific to corrections. Fourth, they have a lot of discussion about allocating funding and eligible ABE local providers. That's really part of that recompete, or that federal ABE competition. Also, they talked about state and local boards, and there's a section on one-stops. So, those are kind of the key pieces of the regulations. And we'll talk a little bit more about our training to you on that and other pieces in a little bit. But before we go into that, I want to specifically dive into one section, and that is what we've been calling the recompete, but really it's the federal competition for ABE funds. Or I should say the competition for federal ABE funds. That's the appropriate word choice here. So in your materials, I wanted to share with you the revised document. This is revised since Summer Institute, but we have for you the Federal ABE Recompete Proposal. And so if you look, it's in the resources and listed as Federal ABE Grant Application Proposal. And I'd really encourage you to pull that up right now. Download that and upload it right now because I'm going to walk through a couple of key pieces of that. So please check on materials and pull up Federal ABE Grant Application Proposal. This is a 3-page document, and it has 5 basic sections to it. First off, there's a summary that just is a couple sentences describing what the recompete is, what this federal ABE funds competitive application is, and what it's meant to be. Second section are some acronyms. Just basically, we're throwing out some of the acronyms that are used throughout the proposal or that are an important component of the proposal. Third is a 15-point or 16-point proposal that details kind of some key aspects of the recompete, of the competitive application. Then there's proposed application questions, a timeline, and then a section for more information. So those are the main components of this proposal. And I'm just going to highlight a couple of them for you right now. First off, I'd like to highlight in the details section, proposal number 4, and just reminding you that federal ABE funding will be competed separately from state ABE funding. However, state ABE funded are encouraged to apply for these federal funds. And all ABE consortia will be required, whether or not you're federally funded, state funded, or both, all ABE programs in Minnesota will be required to adhere to the same set of accountability measures and policies. That way we can maintain one cohesive system. State-funded ABE programs can continue to apply for and receive state ABE funding even if they're not awarded or choose not to apply for federal funding. And we also just wanted to highlight that current existing ABE consortia could actually collaborate to write one regional or a multi-consortium application for federal funding. The other piece that I want to highlight here is the regional aspect of the proposal. So that is number 9 and number 10. So first off, in coverage, as a key component of your application, you'll be asked to identify either a geographic area of service or a unique population that you serve, and then you'll be competing for that geographic area of service or for that unique population. Number 10. All of these proposals for federal funding will be evaluated by Workforce Development Area Region, as aligns with basically current consortium lines. So you see here we have Central Minnesota, Metro split into the East Metro and West Metro, Northeast, Northwest Minnesota, Southeast, Southwest Minnesota, and then we see statewide special populations. The statewide special populations could include incarcerated individuals, folks in state corrections or prisons, people with disabilities, homeless individuals, and other special populations. The Central Minnesota region does not fully line up with our current Central Minnesota region. Instead, that is the Central Minnesota region for this recompete will include Central Minnesota ABE, Glacial Lakes ABE, and West ABE are the 3 consortia that are in that region. And what it's important to note is that these applications will be evaluated by region. Each region may have 0, 1, or more potential awardees. Each region is not limited to one awardee, but it's not guaranteed that every region will get an awardee if there is not an application that meets sufficient points or does not seem to be, does not meet the threshold for funding. And then trying to think of what else we want to say about this aspect. Jodi, anything else you want to add about points 9 or 10?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. The other, so as you fill out that application, you're going to be identifying which of those regions are you falling under. Are you in central Minnesota? Are you in Metro on the east side, Metro on the west side, northeast Minnesota, northwest Minnesota, southeast, southwest Minnesota, or are you a statewide special population? Each application should only identify one region. We're not asking you to say, oh, I'm Metro West, and I'm also a statewide special population serving students who are visually impaired. We're not asking you to fill out, to compete in 2 regions simultaneously, but we ask that each application prioritize one area. What I will also note is in the statewide special populations, those programs then are not necessarily limited to only serving those entities. Like if someone were to put a proposal in for serving homeless individuals, for example, they're not only limited to just serving homeless individuals, but they're saying that their program is geared towards homeless individuals, but they would allow other eligible ABE participants to participate in the programming as well. So we will take some questions about the recompete here in just a little bit, but I just want to go through a couple other pieces here. We're not going to go through all of the pieces, but I want to highlight number 11. So as we talk about each application being evaluated by region, that means we will have WA regional review teams. The review teams will include 3 or 4 local ABE practitioners from other regions. For obvious conflict of interest reasons, we can't have people from that region participating in that in the evaluation of that region. So we'll have people from other regions, local people from other regions, participating in the evaluation of that region's applications for federal ABE funding. We will also have 1 state staff person, at least 1. We'll also have someone from MWCA participating and potentially 1 or 2 other representatives from partner entities. So at least half the review team, or more than half the review team, will be ABE practitioners at the local or state level. And the review process will be, there will be all the applications will be collected electronically via email, distributed to reviewers via email, and the reviewers will be asked to review those applications individually, fill out an individual scorecard or rubric, and then we'll come together, much like we do for the narrative process, to discuss and develop a composite scorecard for every proposal. And then there'll be recommendations made. Okay. Then the other key piece that I want, so that's everything I want to highlight, but let's actually jump down to the timeline section. So the timeline that you can see here for the federal competition is that in November you'll see a notice for applicants to submit letters of intent, and that will be published publicly. Those will be due in December, and then December 8th we're going to have our federal grant application informational workshop, what we've often called the manager's meeting, or also it's a little bit more like a grant application meeting. In January or February, we're going to publish the federal ABE grant RFP on the Minnesota Department of Education website, and the RFP will also be emailed to every entity that submitted letters of intent to apply. And then in March, those applications will be due to the local boards and to the Minnesota Department of Education. During the months of April and May, the review of applications will take place by region, and then in June, we hope to make those announcements and awards public. So let's take a moment to do some questions before we talk about further training opportunities and other key pieces. So Astrid, can you, or Todd?
I was just going to suggest, Brett, you might want to read Beth's question quick and then address it.
Okay. Well, could you please?
Sure. So Beth is asking, is there a way to get ahead of this and pre-prepare our information for the application? Should we just look at last year's narratives form?
So if you're looking to prepare an application, there are 2 things that I would really encourage you to do. 1, pull up your most recent ABE narratives. 2, look at the 13 considerations that we've handed out in multiple sessions, or that you can also read in the WIOA law. The application will be predominantly based on the 13 considerations, but there will be some state-specific questions. So as you look through those 13 considerations, start making that crosswalk. Okay, so I see that consideration is asking about how we collaborate with other entities. So you know what? I bet I should look in my collaboration section of the narrative and see what pieces there I might want to pull out specifically for the application. So if you're looking to prepare locally, that is what I would be doing at this point in time.
And then
Great
we'll be
question,
providing
Beth.
additional guidance at the December 8th information workshop.
Yep. Just to add to that quickly as well, if you are able to have input into your local or regional WIOA plans, that potentially would be another source that you might cite in the actual ABE federal funds application.
So another question is asked for the recompete. Meg asks, well, if we can group together to apply for federal funds, should all the current consortia just work together to apply submit one statewide application? Whew. I guess it's entirely possible. I think I would I am both curious and never want to. I'm curious to read it, and also probably never want to actually read that 43 consortium developed application. Other questions about the recompete, about the federal application? You'll see we're going to start utilizing, instead of saying the recompete, we're going to start using the term something more along the lines of the Federal Adult Basic Education Provider Grant, or the federal, or the application for federal ABE funds. Okay, so one of the key components of training, and this will be open to all current consortia plus any other organization that submits a letter of intent or opts to participate based on promotion on the Minnesota Department of Education website. We're going to have our WIOA training opportunity for administrators at our ABE Manager / Federal Grant meeting, and that's December 8th at TIES here in St. Paul. There will be 3 major components included in that day-long training. There will be one discussion about the federal ABE competitive grant, some more in-depth information than what we've shared today. There will be training on the federal regulations, and there will be training on the new ABE accountability measures that will be going into place in part this year and in part next year. There will be 2 sections of that accountability. We have not yet decided. We're still in the process of structuring that training. There may be 2 tracks, or there may be some concurrent sessions that take place, or breakout groups that take place during that day. So we really want to say 2 things about that then. A, it's essential for all consortia to attend this training. And B, it's highly recommended that every consortia maybe think about sending multiple staff, maybe at least 2 staff, because there will be some sections. We will promote an agenda as we get closer to the timeline, and as we put out the registration materials. But for now, I just wanted to kind of plant that seed and make sure that you're aware that these are the three of the major components of that ABE Manager / Federal Grant meeting on December 8th, and that there's going to be a lot of meaty discussions and a lot of information at this session. So one area that you can continue to look for as you have additional questions about WIOA or want to do some personal investigation investigation of WIOA at the local level, online you can go to the Federal U.S. Department of Education website, and that is www.2 www.ed.gov/AFLA, AEFLA, and that stands for the Adult Education and Family Literacy Act. And again, we just wanted to promote those two trainings that are coming up, the Support Staff Conference in November and the ABE Manager/Federal Grant Meeting in December. So those will both be key training opportunities for you, as well as the online resources that are available. And at those two training opportunities, we'll be breaking down a lot of the federal U.S. Department of Education guidance and providing some additional clarification. So that is all the information that we have for you today in terms of those key pieces. Our next webinar is going to be Wednesday, January 11th, 2017. So this was actually our last web chat of the year, so yay for us. The next web chat will be Wednesday, January 11th from 1 o'clock to 2:15. And so now let's open it up for questions. We've had a lot of discussion today about transitions, professional development, grants, GED, and WIOA. So this is a chance for you to ask any questions you have about any of those topics or any other topics or questions you'd like to ask to the state ABE staff.
And you can chat those into the chat box or raise your hand. We'll unmute you, and you can share your questions.
You might also have some questions that you want to ask any of your colleagues out there, and this is a good chance to ask those as well. I thought for sure we'd have more questions.
I know.
There was a lot of discussion. And I know we didn't get to go through the full federal ABE competitive application.
Let's call for questions.
Oh, we have a hand up.
Pat, I will unmute you. Just a minute here. Go ahead, Pat, you're unmuted.
Okay, I just thought I'd mention that with change for ABE programs to be able to receive reimbursement for CNA training, that there will be more information coming out in the near future.
Yep. Yeah. I think this was part of the time when you couldn't hear, when your sound still wasn't working, or when the sound wasn't working. But yeah, Julie mentioned that in the discussion. So she's planning on connecting more with you and the DHS contact to provide some additional clarifying guidance for folks.
Yeah, and I think the only thing that is really important at this time is that ABE programs may have healthcare agencies getting a hold of them to have some discussion on having CNA classes within their program, and just to be aware that might happen.
Yes.
Okay, thanks, Pat.
So we
Todd,
had
you have a question about the new
database. Yeah, Kirsten was surprised that there were no comments about the new database and how the process is going. Maybe this would be a good chance to ask how the process is going across the state.
Sure, that'd be great if people wanted to just quick chime in through the chat. I would say we didn't bring it up as an issue today, in part because it seems to be going very smoothly. I know there have been some fix and some bugs here and there that have required addressing, but my sense from what I'm hearing from folks is Jenny and Mary and Garrett are doing a great job in supporting programs and making the transition, and that everything's going very smoothly. And
as far as we know, that the database still doesn't have a name yet, does it?
As far as I know, it's there were a number of entries submitted to the Literacy Council, but I don't believe, to my knowledge, a winner has not yet been selected.
So it's still the database that shall not be named.
Yes. And then we have a question about the IEL Civics grants. We're in year 2 of that grant cycle.
Yep. So in year 16-17 here, it's year 2 of the 2-year cycle. So that means all the grantees that were awarded in for July 1 of 2015, all of them have been allowed to continue because they met all the requirements. So they're continuing for 2016-17. Now that does mean, though, this kind of makes me a little nervous thinking about it, but that does mean somehow in the spring between federal ABE applications and the state ABE applications that we will have to have an IEL Civics application. So I'd imagine that is going to be very similar to the last posting in spring of 2015. But there will be another round of IEL Civics grants awarded. A new slate of IEL Civics grants awarded in starting July 1 of 2017. So look for more information about that in spring of 2017. And I'm really at the federal boot camp. It was kind of surprising. There was an interesting amount of discussion about that. One of the biggest complaints about IEL Civics is that they hate saying IEL Civics. It's awkward. It doesn't flow off the tongue nearly as easily as EL Civics. So I propose that we just started calling it like Integrated English Language and Civics. So it's INT from Integrated, and then English Language is EL. So it's I think we should just start calling it Intel Civics. It's a little easier to say.
Kirsten asks, any thought of going back to the electronic PDF submission?
I think not. I know that people had gotten used to that, but with the new data system, ideally attendance taking just gets, doesn't have to be done this way, but ideally, as has been the case for the majority of MNABE users for the last many years, the attendance data entry just gets pushed down to the teacher levels. Teachers log on, take attendance within the system. It doesn't have to be done that way. But certainly the new system makes that possible, and most MNABE users have followed that process for many years now.
And also we need because she was talking about Excel versus PDF, is that right? For submission there?
I think she's talking about for contact hours from local sites.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Becky confirmed that Mary and Jenny have been really great at getting back on questions in a timely manner.
Bernadette has a question about looking at 2015-16 data relative to NRS targets for the report card. Brad had mentioned earlier we've sort of had the report card on hold, pending making changes to it to align with WIOA. And certainly we have targets.
And the targets are posted on MNABE. If you go to MNABE.org, and you click on Program Management, and you click on NRS and Accountability, I have uploaded the new targets there, so you can actually see those targets on that site.
Yeah, so she's found those.
Oh, good.
A question about, I think, the Language and Literacy Institute that will be held again this year at the end of January 26th and 27th, the Language and Literacy Institute, and you can more information will be coming about that on the Atlas website and in the PD newsletter that was very well received last year, and we anticipate another great PD event this year.
After being quiet, now we're getting some really good questions. Yeah.
Brad, if someone were looking for a copy of the 13 considerations, do we have that posted anywhere on our website?
We don't at this point, but we could post it on, yeah, that's a good idea. What I should do is maybe post the 13 considerations. If you go to mnabe.org and you click on Program Management, And under program management, you'll see law, policy, and guidance. I have the start of a very early section on WIOA there. I can add the 13 considerations document. And the document that I'll probably upload there is the one that I've done that's broken down by thematic sections, not just numbers 1 through 13. It lists which number each consideration is, but it breaks them down by what is the theme. Is it more about collaboration? Is it more about educational program quality or capacity, doing things like that. That way it's a little easier for you to kind of initially review and digest. So I'll upload that document to that site.
Okay, great.
I suppose that would be a little shorter than reading the 2,000-page document on the regs and the law.
And Sherry just posted the link to that URL that Brad just provided. So you could click on that quick and bookmark it.
I also just got a question about with someone expressing some interest in having database follow-up training at the fall regionals. Those agendas are fairly set at this point, but just want to take the temperature of the group right now to see if that's something that would be helpful if we can make that happen. So, and just to remember that those regionals at this point are just scheduled for the north and the south for the fall. So if you would like that, just quick chat in here so I can get a sense of how many people would be interested in that. Can't promise anything. I'll need to talk to the Urban Planet folks and see if we can fit it into our schedule. If not for fall, we could certainly make it work for the spring.
So yeah, continue to type in yes or no if you are interested in if you would be participating in the North or the South Regional on having some database follow-up if that's available. While you're typing that in, I just wanted to reiterate, or I wanted to kind of point out Eric Lynn's question. He's asking about those NRS targets for FY17. Do they officially start July? Are they a July to June target, or are they a May to April target? The level completion targets are now a July to June target. Contact hours are still tracked on the May to April, and that's due to state law, and that's how you get your funding determined. But contact hours are now all on the July to June schedule.
NRS data.
Yeah, for NRS data.
Yeah. And Eric also asked about, does that mean that May and June are just lost months? And the answer to that is no. In fact, for the last couple of years anyway, what we've been reporting to the feds has been based on an extract from the data system that was a July 1 to June 30 extract. So we'll be doing the same thing this year, and the data extract actually, Garrett has already done the data extract for 15-16, and it is based on a July 1 to June 30 data set. So that's, and going forward for purposes of developing a report card, negotiating targets, etc., we will strictly be using performance data from that July 1 to June 30 timeline.
Carolyn notes that she thinks it would be helpful to know if and when we'll be able to do more queries, like she can't query to find out who has completed their GED. And those GED follow-ups are always done after the fact. They're on their own determination timeline. The unfortunate piece is that because of state data privacy laws, we actually can't tell. We don't know exactly which students through this data match have their GED. The state GED administrator, me, and Alice, we are able to look that up student by student, but we don't actually have legal authority to share all of the same information on every single student except in roster data form. But that doesn't go back to the database, and that's largely a capacity issue. Todd, do you think that's going to change in the long term?
Yeah, in fact, Jenny just, as far as looking up the GED, that's still sort of a work in progress. We may eventually be able to provide that feedback back into the data system, so you would know at least if someone had passed or not. But just wanted to also note, Carolyn, you probably saw that Jenny replied also. And really, if you have questions, concerns about reporting functionality that's in the data system, best to contact Jenny and or Mary and let them know what your needs are, and then give you a better idea of what stuff they've got already in the works in the pipeline. So.
Last call for any other questions. We have a couple more minutes here.
I think Carolyn also actually made a submission, a name submission for the new database, which is called the new MNABE. I'm going to add that to the list for consideration.
This is becoming a long list.
It is a long list.
I know George Kimball is calling it the Prince system. We at the state office have been calling it Computer McDatapans. Okay, well, this is your last chance to ask any questions. I'm glad to hear the voices of support coming in now for Computer McDatapans. I mean, I feel very affirmed by that choice, or by that nomination. So that's good to hear. Continue to ask us any questions. We're going to stay on for the next couple minutes, but otherwise, thank you all very much. It's been a great session. I think, Kathy, you can stop recording now. Look forward to seeing you all at upcoming events over the course of the fall.